Welcome to another episode of Classic Gaming Brothers. I'm Zach.
And I'm Seth.
And I'm Matt.
Hey!
Hey.
Nice. Matt's been here the whole time.
I have been.
And we're the Classic Gaming Brothers.
We are. Well, yeah, we're the Classic Gaming Brothers and Matt.
Matt.
That's the name of the show. That's been the name of the show since episode 1.
No. I feel like that's disingenuous to people who are starting to listen to just this episode.
Well, I figured they could piece two together when it says featuring Matt from
Maybe
Not So Handy Car Guy. But I'll leave it to the listeners to figure it out. But yes, we flew Matt out here to our studio, the sunny Classic Gaming Brothers studio,
Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Yeah,
Cambridge,
our
Massachusetts.
fair city.
I've never flown first class before, so I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah, I know. Like, who's spending the budget? We flew. If Mike hears about this, he knows we flew him steerage. We loaded him into the luggage compartment.
Oh, we strapped Theo to the roof of the car. I mean,
to Theo in.
Yeah.
So yeah, we can't talk about expenses.
So yes, we are joined today by Matt of Not So Handy Car Guy. Matt is a YouTuber who I'm going to try to accurately describe your show.
Go for it.
You review cars and other kind of driving related topics. I mean, he's done everything from, I know you did a review of the Porsche 981 Boxster. You do like essentials for road trip. You reviewed a 1999 Toyota Corolla in like 2019.
My favorite. Yep.
So
I mean, it's a workhorse.
Yeah, it's a workhorse. You're like a variety car YouTuber. Would that be like an accurate way of describing it?
I'd say you pretty much hit the nail on the head with that one, Zach. Yeah, everything under the sun, and maybe not to my benefit. I think if I narrowed it down a little farther, I'd get more of a consistent crowd. But I mean, it doesn't really pique my interest doing like one type of video for every single video. So I'm liking what I'm doing so far.
It's kind of like what Seth and I do with our podcast. If we probably focused on something, we'd like knock it out of the park. But then we do topics on like the Apple Pippin, the video game system that sold under like 20,000 units.
40,000, wasn't it?
Yeah, so same deal.
Yeah, I think that's fun. Like, variety is like the spice of life, but when it comes to like YouTube metrics and algorithms, you need to be very like specific to like be in like a certain niche kind of market. Like, I know I've actually recently been watching Chris Fix It, which I'm sure you...
Chris Fix. Hey guys, Chris Fix here.
Yeah, so like obviously a very big YouTuber in the car space, but he does like a very specific thing, right? And you know what you're gonna get when you watch his show. But I feel like doing variety is just more enjoyable.
It really is, though. Yeah, every popular YouTuber I can think of, like Hoovie's Garage, does every episode is just an update on his hoopty fleet, pretty much. And then Tavares does expensive supercar rebuilds, and Ed Bullion from VinWiki does his sit-down interviews with people and tell car stories. And me, I'm all over the place, from the 99 Corolla to the 2014 Boxster. So I don't know. It's fun. Don't get me wrong.
One of the things I like about your videos, Matt, is kind of it's both the combination of, I think, your personality that you bring to it, but also your expertise that you have with cars, and just the filmmaking element to it, right? For those who might not know, I went to film school, Fitchburg State University. Matt joined me in that venture. we both graduated from that school with a film degree. So I definitely see that raw talent.
Yeah. We are communications media, and I have no skill in communications, so I don't know how I got a degree, but I do appreciate that, though, Zach. Thank you. Yeah, it is super fun. And what's really cool is that just 2 weeks ago or so, I had my first track day experience. So I actually brought out my car onto Thompson Speedway in Connecticut and drove around the track as fast as I could, find the limits of my car. So I guess kind of plays in today's topic, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Nice segue there. So we brought Matt on because he is a car YouTuber, and Seth and I are video gamers, so we wanted to talk about car video games, the place where they collide. But as we get started with tradition, we talk about our recently played games. And Matt, what games have you been recently playing?
Oh boy, you put me first. Okay, so the two most recent games I've played. So my dad actually, he just turned 61, and my mom got him a PS4 for his birthday. This guy has never played video games in his life, so you know how that's gonna go. I, being the car guy, I got him 2 racing games. I got him the Sonic equivalent to Mario Kart, and I also got him the Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, the remastered version, and I've been playing those two. He gets frustrated pretty easily with the controls and stuff. He's played like N64 in the past, and is very simple compared to the PS4 controls. But it is really fun being able to do multiplayer with him, even if I whip his butt 9 times out of 10.
Oh, that's
How
awesome.
about you guys?
Well, I've recently been playing. Actually, it's a modification of the original Doom called Blade of Agony. It's it's set in the Wolfenstein world. So if you're familiar with Wolfenstein, it's World War II killing Nazis. But this is like a really heavily modified version of the original Doom. It features like weather settings, updated AI, stealth features. It's just like all the stuff you would ever want in Doom. So it's really impressive. But it's been a great game to play, really fun to try out. It's free, which is always probably the best thing, is when something is free. It's also has creator of Doom, John Romero's stamp of approval. He tweeted, that's how I found out about it, is he tweeted about it, and he was like, you guys got to try this. It's like the best game ever. And knowing the creator of the game was like, hey, try out this thing that changes my game on a fundamental basis. That's kind of a nice little seal of approval, I think.
So, stupid question here. Doom, is that with Dwayne The Rock Johnson?
That is with
That's
Dwayne
the
The Rock
movie
Johnson.
has Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Yeah. Okay.
All of Doom has Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Now it does.
Okay.
No. Yes, Doom is the movie was with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. It is a first person shooter that came out in the 90s.
Yes, where the graphics are all very like 2D, even though it's like a 3D game, but all the graphics look flat. And this like adds in like 3D models. It adds like lighting, stuff that wasn't possible back in the 90s. They added that in. Yeah, Seth, what about you?
So recently, I've actually also been playing a mod on a game.
Oh, nice. Look at
And
you.
that game that I've been playing is Portal Reloaded. So Portal Reloaded was community made and was done by a group or person goes by the name of Portanus, where they modified the game and added 25 brand new puzzles. Portal, if you're unaware, works with the player, who is known as Chell, gets a gun that can shoot a portal. And so if you left click, it shoots like an orange portal. And then if you right click, it shoots a blue portal. And then you can walk through the portal. And that's kind of, so you have to solve like physics and different type of puzzles by using this portal combination. So sometimes you need to use momentum or stuff because you need to set up like a puzzle on the ceiling, like a portal on the ceiling and a portal on the floor. So then you can fall through the portals to continue to get speed. And it's sometimes really trippy. So what this game did was add a third portal, and that was a time portal. So now you can go 20 years into the future as well as go spatially all around. So it's like a 4-dimensional puzzle. I played it. It's pretty tough. I got through 3 or 4 puzzles and then I kind of got like hung up on something, but it's really good. It really sticks to the portal, the whole portal mythos and the whole portal like experience. And they did a great job. If you own Portal 2, you can get the game for free. And you can just download it. And it's a free mod for the game. Definitely worth it. It's great if you're a fan of Portal. Go grab it and check it out because it is 100% worth the time and it's like a true just like expansion pack to Portal 2, which is a great game. And Valve is just very slow at making games. So that's why we haven't seen it.
So today, like I mentioned earlier, we got Matt on from Not So Handy Car Guy. So he's going to talk to us a bit about cars and racing, and we're going to talk about racing games. So we got a couple questions for you, Matt. Figured while we have you, we'd ask some questions.
Sure, go for it.
Now, you are definitely a fan of cars. I mean, that is your
Yeah,
whole
they're
shtick.
okay.
It's like the same amount that we're fans of video games.
Yeah,
It's
it's like
whatever.
you like cars probably the same way we like
Yeah.
video games. what got you into cars originally?
All right, so well, you know how you start developing memories at like 3?
Yeah.
One of my first memories is just me in the bathtub with a ton of cars in front of me. So I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was a mechanic in my past life or something. But no, I've always been into cars. As far as I can remember, at least. And my parents kind of thought I was annoying growing up because I'm always trying to convince them, like, hey, you should trade in, your Honda Odyssey for this Mustang that just came out in '05. I'm like, it's okay. We don't need the legroom in the back, guys. We can make it work. We'll tow the camper with this Mustang. It'll be fine. That and like I was making videos and stuff, like which translated to my film career too. Making videos and stuff in my parents' cars in their driveways. I always get so mad at me. And now, look who's laughing. I have a YouTube channel about cars, and I get to sit in and drive some sweet cars. We did the Alfa Romeo 4C out in Vegas, Sam and I did, and we did the Porsche 981 Boxster and the Florida Keys, and just a bunch of other cool cars. And I've gotten to meet some really influential people from YouTube too, and I'm just loving this YouTube stuff. If I could make a living this way, I would be so happy. So that's the ultimate goal, is to do that, just make money off this. And people do it. It's just a matter of getting to that point and figuring out all the nuances and stuff with YouTube and the algorithm and all that garbage. So I'm sure you guys know about that.
Now, I have a question. So I like toys, collectibles, action figures, Legos, all that kind of stuff. I've not only do I have like a like of the product, I have like a love of the brands. So because at the end of the day, I'm a marketer by trade, so I really love branding and stories, and the toy branding and stuff like that just like drives me wild. I love all that kind of stuff. So question, are you a Hot Wheels guy or a Matchbox guy? Is the real question.
I don't discriminate, man. I guess I'm not that into branding. I always say like a real car enthusiast loves the love of cars rather than like one specific brand. It does not discriminate, you know? They just appreciate the enthusiasm that everyone else shares towards cars, you know? Does that make sense?
Hot Wheels.
Hot Wheels, totally. Hot Wheels.
Did you want that Hot Wheels computer that came out, the blue one with the flames?
Oh no. I definitely remember that.
There was a Barbie's and a Hot Wheels one. It was blue with the flames.
Oh,
and a
yeah.
CRT.
Yeah, I don't know. I was going through a Barbie phase then, so I kind of maybe I missed that. So,
So like, I mean, you kind of went over it, but what gave you the idea of doing a car review channel?
I went to school for film, and right out of school, I got a job in TV. I was producing a TV show on NBC Sports, a fishing show, and I love making pieces like that for TV. Fishing is just not my thing. So nothing against that job or those guys. It was super fun, but I wanted to put my kind of filmmaking skills towards something that I had more interest in. And YouTube, I was my own boss, and I could really let my personality, whatever that may be, kind of shine through my work on YouTube. And I don't know, right now it just seems like a really good fit for the stuff I want to create. People recognize that too on YouTube. They recognize that I can be myself, and as time goes on, I'm slowly growing an audience that kind of likes my sense of humor, which is very, acquired taste. But, as
Just
it
like
goes on.
coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Just like coffee or IPA. My sense of humor is bitter at first, but then, your body starts to get used to it.
Sound like a New Englander.
I'm definitely a New Englander dude, all right?
Probably the question you probably get a lot. What's your dream car?
Dream car. I don't have one, Zach. I have a couple cars that I would love in my garage. I love the GT350Rs with the flat plane crank V8. Those are awesome. They make glorious sounds. I've always been an Aston Martin fan with their 6-liter V12s, which is basically 2 Ford Taurus engines welded together, and they make a very interesting sound. And I love my GTI. Don't get me wrong. I love my GTI, and I'm putting a lot of work into it too, like a couple grand in next week, and I'm going to make a better track car too. So I'm going to take it back on the track and see how that goes too. No, I love all cars. I do. All cars offer something. You just have to look for it.
Yeah.
Zach, what is your dream car?
Toyota Camry. I've had 2 so far.
Those are sexy.
That's your dream car?
When I'm dreaming, that's the car that I have.
See, I have 2 classes of dream cars. I have like the dream car that I wouldn't take anywhere, and I have a dream car that would be my daily driver. The dream car that I wouldn't take anywhere would be a Lotus.
What kind?
Whichever one is the nicest.
Let's go with the Lotus Avaya.
Yeah, sounds good.
It's a sleek.
Do the doors open fun?
Yeah, they do. They really do.
Yeah, that'd be it. And then for a daily driver would be a Porsche Boxster. I actually really like the the Boxer. I, in fact, have Subaru Crosstrek, so that's like Porsche Boxer.
It is. Yeah, you got that
Vaguely.
Boxer engine. There you
Yeah,
go. Low
that's
center of
the
gravity.
only thing that they have in common.
Yeah, pretty much. And the head gasket failures, that too.
Well, I lease, so I don't have to worry about that.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
So you've reviewed a ton of cars, and is there any car that was your least favorite that you've test drove? Like any that maybe someone will look at and be like, that's going to be a sick car to drive, but you got behind the wheel and you're like, this is not what I expected.
No, I mean, there's some cars that are like average cars. I like driving those the best because, I don't know, I just get to be like ruthless with them. I did a Mitsubishi Outlander review, and the thing was just, I was not impressed whatsoever. And this video, yeah, it has a lot of views, but it's also has, I think, a 37% approval rate. So they were like, this dude's such a douchebag. I'm like, no, I was just literally, this is my first impression with any Mitsubishi ever. I'm a clean slate. I'm obviously not biased because I've never driven one before, and I just gave my anyway that and the Jeep people. The Jeep people are a whole other breed of car people. I love all car people except for Jeep people. So the Jeep Grand Cherokee WK, my girlfriend's father had one, and this thing was just a pile of freaking carcinogenic plastic that would just heat up in the sun. And I did a very negative review on this thing, and oh my god, let me tell you, people, I can't even like tell you the comments I got because this would be flagged. Anyway, those are my favorite kind of things to do because I love just pointing out all the negative things in cars, but also balancing it out with some positive things too. And that's actually very important to do in videos, especially. Yeah. Actually, you know what? You should lead with the positive things first and then end with the negatives. That's what you should do, because all the haters, they'll watch about 30 seconds and then leave a negative comment and leave. So the first 30 seconds or minute or whatever is your time to make a good impression with them.
In my initial correspondence to you, I did mention you mentioned a couple of titles that you were familiar with. You mentioned, in terms of video games, you mentioned Need for Speed Underground 2, Need for Speed Carbon, Excite Truck, Mario Kart. So do you remember, I guess, the first racing game that you played as a kid?
Yeah, yes, I do actually. It was Mario Kart on N64.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Good.
Yep. I remember my sister, we were all really young when N64 first came out. My sisters got me into that, so I'm thankful for that. That was pretty sweet. Oh, and Pokemon Snap too on N64. That was a good one, but not a racing game. But
no, I mean, you're moving.
Yeah, no, it's true.
You're racing at your own pace.
Yeah. And then I remember after that, it must have been, Hot Pursuit 2 came out in what, 02? I think, something like that. Had that on GameCube, and then Need for Speed Underground came out, I think, in 03. Something like that. And those were both influenced by the Fast and Furious franchise too. Yeah, definitely you can see the influence of those movies and the whole kind of tuner scene in Underground. But yeah, especially in Underground, and then Need for Speed Underground. Was there Underground 2? I think. And then there was Most Wanted, then there was Carbon.
I blame Need for Speed Underground for my obsession in high school and college with the Toyota Celica.
Dude, yes. I actually have that in my notes right here. I'm like, that's one of the coolest things, and it makes it super relatable too, is that they had Celicas, Honda Civics. I think they had a Ford Focus. And people who actually drive these cars are like, oh my God, I can race this thing through the city. This is freaking awesome.
I really wanted a Toyota Celica as a high schooler, early college. I was like, I want a yellow Toyota Celica with purple underlights. And that's like that was my dream car.
So 2002. Don't be ashamed.
I played a lot of it at other people's houses. It was just
yes.
They're like, oh, we're just gonna play a racing game. I was like, this game is amazing.
Yeah. And don't forget the Lil Jon soundtrack in the background.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Such a good music.
Oh yeah, Zach, I just remembered. I have two favorite cars in video games.
Toyota Celica.
Yes, perfect. So my two favorite cars in video games, at least the ones I've played, were in Hot Pursuit 2, which is the Mercedes CLK. I don't know, they're super, super cool looking and very rare in real life. So in order to, actually play that in a video game was pretty cool. And then the other one is in Carbon, and it's the Alfa Romeo Brera. And I don't know what it was about that. I just thought it was really neat. Like, it felt exotic. They made it sound and feel as exotic as it really was in real life. So anyway, those are my 2 favorite cars in the video games I played.
Nice. One of my favorite cars in a video game I played was the VW Beetle. in
Hey.
Midtown Madness. Mostly because you can flip the car in the game really
Stop.
easily. If you get enough speed, if you hit like a corner, the car will just spin. It's hilarious. And speaking of game physics, I mean, as someone who reviews cars and knows cars, do you ever find yourself like overly critical when you're playing a game and if the car isn't accurately portrayed or just doesn't feel right? Maybe like even doesn't sound right when you're playing the game?
You brought up a bunch of good points, and this actually brings me to my top 3 things that I dislike about racing games. If you're ready for that.
Are
you ready for that?
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Brace yourself.
We're always ready for everything.
Okay. All right. Number 1, I don't like how when you go off-road, like right off the track, it slows you down instantly. That's not real. If in real life you go pretty much just as fast, except it's bumpier and you have like a third of the grip. So that's number 1.
Yeah.
Number 2 is I really dislike it when they don't use real engine or exhaust sounds of the actual cars that you're driving. And like I totally get the logistical limitations of this, you know, having to spend days getting exhaust sounds just for this one game of modified cars, like taking all the modifications into consideration if you do an exhaust system on there, like an intake or a supercharger or something. That being said, if a video game company ever wanted to hire me to do the sound design, I would sound design the shit out of that game. Like it would be so much fun just to get all the sound effects for these cars. But I don't know, just kind of devalues and cheapens the game if it doesn't sound like it would in real life, to me at least. The third thing is I hate how like slow and unrealistic the steering is in a lot of these games. And Zach, I'm sure, have you ever been on the highway going like 70 miles an hour and just completely turned your steering wheel to one side? If you did that on the highway, if you just jolted your steering wheel all the way to the left, you would be super dead. You know, you'd be like really dead. And in these games, like you can be going 130 miles an hour and then steer the joystick all the way to the left or the right or whatever, and the car just kind of gradually glides in that gentle motion to the left or something like that.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that most of these games don't really take into consideration the drivetrain orientations of their cars. For example, my GTI is front-wheel drive, and a front-wheel drive car behaves completely differently on a track than a rear-wheel drive car does. With front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, you tend to get understeer on the track through the turns as you drive, as your drive wheels are also doing the steering, and as well as putting the power down to the ground. And it gets more difficult to kind of rotate the back of the car out of the turn. With front-engine rear-wheel drive cars, like a classic sports car like a Mazda Miata or a Corvette, Mustang, something like that, you get that back to kind of rotate out because your rear wheels are being driven and it kind of pushes the back as you're coming out of the turn there. And so you get oversteer. And I'm sure you've experienced this while drifting. The Walmart shopping carts, right? Around the electronics section there. Yeah, so the rear end tends to slide out when there's too much power added to it. Anyway, my point is that this stuff makes a difference to a player, whether it's like conscious or subconscious. It just makes it either more realistic or unrealistic in that regard.
I mean, I'm not a car guy.
That's why I'm here. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not also like not a gun guy, but I feel like it's very similar to probably how like gun people probably feel playing video games with guns in them. They're probably like, oh, this doesn't even make the right sound sort of deal. And that can, I understand that can really take away from an experience. If the game is designed to attract an audience of people interested in the topic and it does it wrong, then it's not doing its job. Like a topic I like classic games from the 80s. If there was like a movie or something about that and it got something wrong, I mean, it would be noticeable to me because I'm interested in that topic. And that's, if they're trying to pull in that audience, they're already kind of losing that audience, right? So yeah. I definitely can understand that.
Exactly. And like in film school, remember they kept telling us, just write about what you know, because if you try and write about something that you don't know, people are going to see through it, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like video games too. If you're going to be working on a car video game, you bring in car people, like genuine car people to help you out or something like that to make it as authentic as you can for those car people who want to play the game.
Which I think, like, if you look at car games that came out like this year versus car games that came out in the 1990s, I think you can see that that's happened mostly because I feel like as the budget for these games have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, they can hire Ford engineers to come down and like walk them through something, or they can hire guys like pit crew people or whoever they need to do in regards to a specific game, and to get that specific subject matter expert to come in. And but those people are expensive, and especially like if you're like, oh, I'm a subject matter expert on Formula One racing, I guarantee you that guy's gonna cost, or that gal's gonna cost $100,000. Just like, it's because they're like, oh, I do other things, and it's just like, oh, you want me to consult on your game? Yeah, you're gonna pay for it. Maybe not 100,000, but it's
some games definitely probably get by the fact that they do a lot of work with the car companies now, because those games now act as free advertisement for those car companies. So like, for example, one of the Forza games had a 2017 Ford GT on the cover because of a deal that they did with Ford, because Ford was like, hey, we will help you, give you money toward this game, but you got to put us on the cover. We got to be there. Yeah. I think Seth has a point. I think, and Matt would be the expert on this, but probably some modern games still have the problems that some older ones did have. But I do think that most of the ones that have come out and released recently have at least tried somewhat to get it right. And obviously they can't always get it right, which is unfortunate. And it does, I think, take away from the overall appeal of these games, especially for people like Matt and people that are fans of cars. But at the same time, I think that they definitely did a better job than they did in the 90s.
Oh, I completely agree. And it's exciting too. I was recently watching a video snippet from the alleged new Need for Speed game coming out that was pushed back another year or two, whatever. It looks really promising too, because you can totally tell that there's some genuine car people involved with the design of the game. It was a super quick clip that I saw on YouTube, but from what I saw, the detail of the cars look like really fantastic. And they had another issue is a lot of them are kind of straying away from like the modification element of cars in these games. They're just having, like exotic supercars. And there you go. That's like, plug and play kind of, you choose a car and drive. But no, in the trailer for this, or the snippet that I saw, they had a Nissan 180SX, and it was like completely customized alongside of a Porsche GT3 RS. So they have both, and I think that's really cool, because as a car person, there's something way cooler about making like a slow car fast than just buying a fast car and keeping it stock, Right, and I think that's also what draws us to the game is being able to customize these cars and actually put our like hearts into them. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like I'm doing my car now.
Yeah. So what I think is cool about racing games is that they are one of the oldest forms of arcade games, right? So even before video arcade games, there were racing games. I mean, there were mechanical games in the 1900s. There was a car racing game that was popular in British amusement arcades in the 1930s. That was a mechanical-based game. There were also mechanical games up until the 70s. One title called The Driver, which, Matt, I think you'll think this is cool, used a 16 millimeter film projection as the like road that you were on. Whoa. So it projected a 60 millimeter film that you would sit in front of, and you would have to like react in time for the game to work. Yeah, it was cool. So you had stuff like that, and really the last successful mechanical game was Atari did a mechanical game called F1 in 1976, which, as the name implies, involved F1 racing cars. Now, Atari also introduced us to the first arcade video game with Grand Track Co. That came out in 74. It was a stand-up arcade machine, used a steering wheel, had an accelerator, brake pedal, and a gear stick. The graphics were very limited. They were black and white, and it was top-down and very, very blocky looking. Definitely not realistic, I would say, in terms of effects, but really it would pave the way for what became the godfather of the modern racing game, Pole Position. Pole Position, when it was sold in the arcade, used a sitting cabinet, kind of similar to how we see modern racing games. Also, the view for Pole Position was third person, I guess you could say, behind the car, which would kind of get used pretty much for games to this day, right? So even games like the most recent Forza has a setting you could put yourself third person behind the car. That is something that is a standard that came from Pole Position. I guess we got a bit around the bush. We can't really forget that there really are two types of racing arcade games. There's kart racers like Mario Kart, and there's the simulation racers, which are kind of the more realistic style games. So, Matt talked about Mario Kart. We'll talk about Mario Kart a little later too, but it's those are more of a different kind of style of game than what something like Gran Turismo is, right?
And I also feel like there's an in-between where it's maybe not like, I feel like the extreme of kart racing is Mario Kart.
Yeah.
But I feel like you could have arcadey style games
Right.
that aren't necessarily the kind of cartoony aspect or fun like the style of Mario Kart. Because there's other kart racers out there that are similar in style to Mario Kart, since Mario Kart's a very successful franchise. But I feel like there is stuff that's like that, and that's more of like those party games. But then you have also like these arcadey style games where they try to use realistic cars, but the controls aren't necessarily the most true controls. The physics may be a little off. Maybe like Midtown Madness is an example of that, right? The cars are all real cars. They exist, but the physics are not real physics. And so you can end up doing weird stuff with your car. Crazy Taxi is another one.
Yes, I love that game.
Yeah, the kind of games where you're doing like 90 or 100 and you crank the wheel and you just kind of like glide around the corner.
Right. Where I feel like maybe the Gran Turismos or the Forzas are trying to be a little more as accurate as possible. Not only for the cars that they are themselves, but also the physics of the cars. Because I think physics in a car game is probably the most important mechanic in a car game that you're playing beyond like the racing component. Because at the end of the day, like the car game itself, you're going to be doing some sort of challenge with your car, whether that be racing, stunts, maybe crashing into each other like Burnout or what have you. You're going to be doing time trials, checkpoints, some manner of combination such as that. And in order to accomplish that, you're moving this box essentially that's looks like a car, and it's got different physics, and those physics play into how the game plays. Now, kart racers are often what people associate as kid-friendly games, where the characters are often famous, like Mario or Sonic, and the games usually feature some types of power-ups that offer ways to change up the gameplay, which is important in any racing game. You need to change up your gameplay or have a mechanic that is sticks long enough so that you entertain the players longer than 10 minutes. Because honestly, especially for car people, I feel like if a car racing game is not interesting, you're just going to go drive your car.
You'd
right?
think, except you can get in trouble pretty quick.
Yes, that's true.
Dude, I threw a banana out the window once at Princess Peach. She died. So let me tell you.
35 car pileup on 84 caused by a banana.
Oh, you remember that?
And the physics for kart racers are usually not based on any real world physics, and also may change based on the vehicle. Based on the vehicle in the game, you may have different physics within the game. Each car may have different physics. Like Bowser may have different physics than Mario. Simulation racers, on the contrary, are more grounded in reality. They may have fantastical elements in terms of maps, but often the games utilize cars that actually exist. So sometimes this is done through sponsorship or licensing of the car designs, though some games will use fictional car companies to pretend to be, because they don't want to license the name of the actual car game to represent the real cars. Like, for example, a game like GTA 5, which is not a racing game, but has a lot of car elements to it, may do something where they make up fake names for their cars because they have other things that they need to pay for that's not licensing the name Ford to be used in their game. They've got, like shootings and bank robberies and all sorts of drug heists and all sorts of stuff that they need to pay for beyond just car names. So they may make a car that looks like a Ferrari, but then call it an Infernus.
Is that for real?
Get away with. I believe the Infernus does look like a Ferrari, and the Infernus is one of the cars that you can get. They actually, GTA is really bad when it comes to lining the name up. Almost, you could pretty much identify the car based on how it looks and what its name is. You can pretty much match back and be like, oh, that's actually supposed to be a Subaru, or that's supposed to be a Ferrari.
Whenever I play GTA, I always get it's so funny because like I can pick out cars pretty well like on the road. I look at them in this game and I'm like, oh, that's definitely a Hummer, and then it drives past me and it's like a Toyota 4Runner from the back. So it's like these Frankenstein cars. Yeah,
because they're like whatever. I also think it's fun that I've learned while doing some research for this podcast that certain arcade games had licenses, but when they ported them to home consoles, they lost the license for the home consoles. So then they would have to change everything about the game, but still keep it be the same game. And we could actually talk about that as we get into one of our first most popular titles, probably one of the greatest racing games known to man, and that is Cruisin' USA. Cruisin' USA was originally developed by Eugene Jarvis, and he worked over at Midway Games, who our friends also did NBA Jam and one of our upcoming episodes. Cruisin' USA was released in North American markets in 1994, and the first in the Cruisin' series was, as evident by me talking about it, Cruisin' USA. There would be two sequels to Cruisin' USA released shortly after Cruisin' USA, and that would be Cruisin' the World and Cruisin' Exotica. They all started in arcades, and then they all were migrated to the N64. The arcade versions of these games do really well. Cruisin' USA, Cruisin' World, Cruisin' Exotica were all commercially successful arcades and really were appreciated by the game reviewers of the time, stating that really what Cruisin' USA is what Sega should have done with the Outrun series that Sega was producing. However, the N64 versions of these games were not so highly praised. The Cruisin' USA, there was reviews that the game had jerky frame rate and bad collision detection. However, Cruisin' USA was commercially successful still, even though it was poorly reviewed, and was the 6th best-selling video game of the 1996 Christmas shopping season, which is fun because the N64 had very little games in 1996. And I remember this as a child. Everyone had a copy of Cruisin' USA, and I don't think it was because everyone liked car racing games. It was just because there were 5 or 6 games available on the N64, and Cruisin' USA was one of them. And so people would just buy Cruisin' USA. And the N64 had a very small library of games at the time. And so then people rolled in and they got the first game and maybe they liked it. So then they got Cruisin' World, Cruisin' Exotica. Though Cruisin' the World was actually delayed, was released in arcades around 96, which was when the N64 version of Cruisin' USA came out. But there was a lag of about 2 years before it was released to the N64 because the company was like, yeah, we screwed up with Cruisin' USA. We feel like it's not a perfect port of the game, so we're going to make a more perfect port with Cruisin' World. And then Cruisin' Exotica was released in 99 for the arcades, though this time in Cruisin' Exotica, you could get a pin to be able to track your progress through the arcade system, which was kind of cool. So if you got to a certain map and unlocked certain maps, you get a pin, and then you'd go home, you'd come back to the arcade, and you can continue your Cruisin' Exotica game from where you left off. Similar to another game in arcades at the time, San Francisco Rush 2049, probably the greatest game ever given to us. It had a similar system in place. They did make some minor tweaks when they ported the Cruisin' Exotica game to the home console in 2000, and it was like they hid some cars, so you had to unlock them and so on and so forth. Very minor. However, still received similar critique where the first 10 minutes were good and then it got old for an extended playtime. Cruisin' Exotica was also released for the Game Boy Color, which is a choice.
I'm sure it was a great looking game on the Game Boy Color.
So Midway eventually departed the arcade business, and Eugene Jarvis departed Midway. And what Eugene ended up going to do was he started a company called Raw Thrills. Now, Raw Thrills released an arcade game for the movie Fast and the Furious.
Oh.
And it was the Fast and the Furious game. So if you've ever played the Fast and Furious game in the arcades, that was a Eugene Jarvis cruising game.
Eugene, dude.
I always forget that Fast and the Furious had a game, similar to how I always forget that Need for Speed had a movie.
Oh my god. We can make a whole podcast just on that.
Yeah.
The fun thing that I learned, though, was they lost the license when they ported it to the Wii. So then it just became Cruisin' on the Wii. And they had to go through and replace all of the licensed cars and characters and everything throughout the game to make it generic so that they could put it out onto into the system, into the world.
That's fun.
They also, Raw Thrills also released a game in 2017 called Cruisin' Blast. So if you're a fan of the Cruisin' series, it's still limping along, I guess. I also wanted to talk a little bit about San Francisco Rush 2049, the greatest game that was ever gifted to us. Single-handedly, and out of all the racing games that have ever come out, San Francisco Rush 2049 is a very accurate and a very represented game. I 100% recommend playing it. It is part of the Rush series of games. Which started out with Extreme Racing, and then Rush 2 Extreme Racing USA, and then the final, these were all set in San Francisco. After San Francisco Rush 2049, they had another game that took place in LA. However, this game, San Francisco Rush 2049, is a part stunt racing game, which is probably the best part, regular racing modes, and then a battle arena. And the arcade version had it so that you can chain up to 8 arcade cabinets together, though primarily when the arcades purchase them, they would buy them in sets of 2 because nobody's going to dedicate 8 spaces on a wall, because that's, I'm going to guess, let's say an arcade cabinet's probably like 2.5 feet wide, maybe.
That would get rowdy real quick.
Yeah, it's like, here's 12 feet of one game. Go ahead.
I would love that, though.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah, imagine walking into like a bar and it's just one game that's just been chained around the entire bar.
Yeah, there's just one pizza place in Wareham, down Onset, Mark Anthony's. Have you ever been there?
Yeah.
Either of you?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have I think that's 4 of the Cruisin' USA's.
To go back to Cruisin' USA for a moment, that was one of the first racing games where you can change the music.
Serious, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that one of the first games where in the arcade you can push the button and change the music. San Francisco Rush 2049, however, did in their home version of the game also included stunt wings in the car. So if you flew, you could activate stunt wings, so then you can do tricks while in the air, which you could not do in the arcade
Or in real life.
That too.
Yes.
I tried that once, didn't work out.
The cars in Rush 2049 Drive the Future were amazing, in my opinion. And they just put like rockets on the back of cars. It was just, it's a
Now
joy.
that in real life, Bob Lazar, you heard of him? He puts rockets on cars, gets it done.
It's 2021 now, so he's got 28 more years to get
There
to
you
be
go.
where San Francisco Rush 2049
He's
is.
on his way.
Yeah, he's on his way.
It's right. When I was a child, I had a friend. Well, I still have a friend, and his name is also Matt. Matt is also a car guy, and I played a number of all the racing games that I played, and also the first time I ever played Grand Theft Auto, thanks to Matt, was at his house because he had the PlayStation and the N64. So I would go over and we would inevitably play racing games because I liked video games a lot, so I was okay with playing whatever, and Matt really liked racing stuff and cars, so we would play racing games because I would be over and I would have no real compunction about what we were playing. But I always liked the more, I would say the more fun racing games where they were arcadey and I could crash things. So like Burnout and Rush 2049 and Cruisin' USA. Like I liked the smashing into things more than I liked the actual racing. And Matt liked the actual racing, so sometimes we would play like Gran Turismo, which is very boring when it comes to crashing. And so I would just, whenever we started a race, turn my car around and drive backwards so that I could crash in Gran Turismo. Because if you slam into a car going, 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour, it's going to cause some damage. So I was always Matt's wingman when it came to helping him beat the computers because I was too incompetent to actually play.
Honestly, good friend points go to you right now.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah, for real.
Good
Sacrificing
friend
your life, you
points.
paid the ultimate price. If you've ever been to Seekonk Speedway, by the way, that's exactly what they do in real life.
They turn around and just go back.
Yeah, they actually do that.
Perfect.
It's fantastic. I suggest going.
I will go to Seekonk Speedway.
It is
They're
best
not too far
$25
from me.
you ever spend, and you gotta get the chicken fingers too. So I don't have a ton of experience with these kind of like, what do you call them, like bridge games that kind of bridge the gap between surrealism and realism.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like arcadey games.
I don't have a ton of experience with them, but I do have one negative experience is when I had Hot Pursuit and I had Carbon, I had Most Wanted, and all those kind of trying to make them as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
And then I got, I think it was Need for Speed Nitro for Wii. I think it was just on Wii and like one of the portable consoles as well, and it was they tried making one of those kind of arcade games, but also blending it with the realism. And I remember being so disappointed too, because like they had one of my favorite cars, and they had the Dodge Challenger that just came out, and so excited for that. And then all of a sudden it just like everything was so blocky, and all the graphics were just like they're trying to mimic pretty much an arcade game. And I wonder if that was to save on development costs. What do you guys think?
I wouldn't be surprised if what EA was trying to do was be like, hey, we need to tap into this Mario Kart market somehow, and we need to put out a Need for Speed that can beat Mario Kart. So let's try to do that. And
it didn't happen. Spoiler alert.
It didn't.
It did not happen.
I think they were definitely trying to get like me, right? The casual racing fan versus the hardcore racing fan, or the hardcore person who actually cares about cars, to go for it.
Definitely didn't do that.
No, I think it just missed the mark, dude. Like coming from Need for Speed, like you think it's going to be this realistic, like really cool graphics. And I remember Carbon had some of like the best graphics pretty much for the time, in my opinion, at least, for racing games.
Yeah.
And then this came out, and I expected it to build on top of that, because I had no idea, what it was about pretty much. And I'm being so disappointed too.
I mean, I would be too. I mean, the thing about Need for Speed is it is the racing game, right?
Right.
I mean, when someone says racing game, I think of two things. I think of Mario Kart, and then I think of Need for Speed.
Boom.
There's like no other games that I think about. But Need for Speed was this quintessential racing game. I mean, when it first came out, it was back in '94. And it was, I think, really what like people realized, oh, this is like what I want in a car game. I want to be able to tune my car the way that I want to tune it, or to be able to drive a car that is a real car and not just something that like is made for the game situation. So I think I can see when this one came out, the Need for Speed Nitro, there was probably a big disconnect where people were like, well, it's Need for Speed, but it's not Need for Speed. It's just the wrong kind of game.
I'm just reading some stuff on Need for Speed Nitro, and the highest praise that it received was Need for Speed Nitro doesn't do anything remarkable.
That's the highest praise.
So when that's your highest praise, you're probably not doing so hot.
Dude, I remember bringing it home from Walmart. I was so excited to try this thing out, and I was so disappointed. Oh my god. I think I played it once.
I would be too. I mean, and Need for Speed, I think it's such an interesting franchise. I mean, it's been around it started out in '94. It was originally on a system no one played, the Panasonic 3DO. It was brought over to the PC, and then it was brought over to the PlayStation, and that's where it got its stride, right? So when people played Need for Speed for the first time, they either played it on the PC or they played it on the PlayStation. Those were the two ones that sold the best. Also, something I never realized until I was doing research for this episode, Need for Speed's first original title was Road and Track Presents The Need for Speed, because it was actually done in collaboration with Road and Track magazine. So in order for EA to get realistic elements in the game that they wanted, I mean, they wanted the cars to sound right, they wanted the cars to look right, they wanted the cars to feel right. And the way they did that was they actually said to Road and Track, hey, help us with this game. I mean, we'll put your name on the game if need be, but we want this game to be a car game. We want this game to feel like something for car fans. And they helped. And yeah, I think that was a great decision on their part. And yeah, Need for Speed, it's one of the best-selling game franchises of all time. They've sold over 150 million units across their entire series. And like I mentioned, it got turned into a film, and they have their own line of Hot Wheel branded toys. So
can we talk about how Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad was the lead in the Need for Speed movie?
Yeah, yes, he was.
Yes, he was.
Oh, that was a weird movie.
I enjoyed it for the most part, because like all their like racing movies like that are kind of B-rated, and this was like a kind of a B+ movie. So, well, as your special guest, I would like to ask you a few questions. Seth, let's start with you. What are the top things that you love to see in racing games?
Top number one's got to be Toyota Celicas.
Oh, of course.
Then probably as much destruction as possible. And then probably a really good, so I really like a customizable car, but I don't like it to be too customizable. So like I was really a big fan of, so have you ever played the Road Rash games for the Sega Genesis, which are racing games? They're just motorcycle racing games.
I haven't.
So there's Road Rash, Road Rash 1, Road Rash 2, and Road Rash 3. They're motorcycle racing games where you race various motorcycles, and they're amazing. You can beat people up while you're racing, which is, of course, why I'm like all excited about them.
Oh, yeah.
But
You can use chains?
you can use chains. At one point in time, the police will come after you. Very like animated, like 2D graphics because it's on the Sega Genesis, but it's like sprite based, so it looks pretty good. But they have like a motorcycle selector, and you can like kind of buy your motorcycle. You can't really tweak it, but I just always was in love with like how you could go and buy you could save up money and go and buy your motorcycle, and you can flip through the different colors and changes them. And I always like that. I don't particularly need to have a lot of like custom tuning, especially like I'm not the guy like who plays Grand Theft Auto 5 to like go in and like do all of the custom tuning. I go to the garage, I do like whatever the bare minimum the quest requires me to do, and then I move on because I like racing. I like the thrill of it, but I'm like I don't particularly need to.
That feature's there kind of
so.
for that niche group of people who actually really are into that stuff. Zach, how about you? What do you love to see in racing games? Your top few things.
I mean, I'm really into map design when it comes to racing games. So like when you get those middle ground between a kart racer and a simulation game, I really like over the top maps. In particular, I'm a big fan of the pod racing Star Wars game. That was a racing game, but the like map design were just over the top, like flipping upside down in the middle of the track randomly, stuff like that. I really like ridiculous things. But when it comes to like a realism game, I mean, I think when I look at a game like Forza, or I look at a game like Need for Speed, I like a lot of parts of the game, but I don't necessarily always understand parts of the game. So like I'm looking at the ways to customize things, and sometimes I'm like, I don't get what this does, but I'm gonna max it out and see what happens. So I think it would be cool to have kind of a happy middle ground where customization maybe is a little more friendly for people like me who maybe not familiar with it. Maybe even just like a little snippet that's like, hey, if you increase that, your car will crash a lot, so don't do that. Like just simple things like that would be nice. Just a little blurb that's just like mechanic says, don't do this to your car, it will break.
Hey Zach, stop.
Yeah, hey, no.
That's fair.
Yeah. What about you?
I'd love to see like realistic damage to the car, especially like in heavy impacts there. And I think that these details kind of help your brain think that the game is realistic. If you crash into a guardrail doing 30, it's going to do some damage. If you crash into oncoming traffic going 130, both your car and the unfortunate teenage girls on the other side of the road and daddy's Jeep are gonna be unrecognizably mangled. Another thing, I love exotic locations. So one of my favorite things about Excite Truck that was on Wii, even though like it kind of bridged the gap between like surrealism and realistic games, was that you could race in pretty much every continent. And the fact that I played the beta version of Excite Truck and gave feedback to the developers in like 2006. I was in 6th grade.
Cool.
And they gave us like a discount when we first came out, and so we got that. My parents got Excite Truck, and I was like, hey, I actually helped kind of develop this game, give feedback on it. I was a beta tester. But driving cars in like exotic locations is totally one of my favorite things to do. Like I said, we did the Alfa Romeo in Las Vegas and the Porsche down the Florida Keys, did the Tesla in Charlotte, and that's just super fun to do that. I feel like it takes the whole like driving another car to the next level when you're in a location like that. I also love to see in these games like obscure cars. So, I mean, not everyone drives a McLaren F1. Pretty much nobody drives a McLaren F1. They're like $8 million now. So, but you can see them in games. What I like to see is like in the Need for Speed games in the early 2000s, like we saw the Celicas, we saw the Ford Tauruses, we saw the Honda Civics. So normal cars that people can seriously relate to. And it makes that game much more personable like that. I'd love to see a GTI like my car in a game. I don't know that there is one, but that'd be super cool, and I would probably buy the game just because that car is in there.
You know what? We need more Toyota Camrys in our games.
I think we do. We really do. And Siennas too.
It's Siennas, yeah. That's what I mean. I one of my favorite games that I played as a child was Midtown Madness, which was this PC game that added open world driving and stuff to racing games, which was awesome. So there was this whole mode in it called cruise mode. It just allowed you to drive around the city. In the first game, it was Chicago, and in the second game, it's San Francisco and London. But what's cool about it is that the cars were just like cars. Like, it wasn't like, yeah, you had your like Roadster or something like that, which was this like classic 1960s car. But then you also had like a city bus and like and the VW Beetle, like the new one.
What is it with the Beetles, man?
Wasn't the VW Beetle, I believe, was predominantly placed in Midtown Madness 2.
Yeah, because it was a licensed car.
It was a licensed car.
Yeah. I think one of the cars was just like a sedan. Like it was great. I mean, you just drive around like your mom's car and crash it into things. It was fantastic. When you talked about damage, I mean, I was thinking of like the Forza games. I think in the first one they kind of introduced the idea of realistic damage, but I think it added more to like the later games. My understanding, I haven't played the Forza games, but I think when you crash your car, it will actually affect performance. So if you hit certain parts of your car, then that part of the car is now damaged. So it's going to affect how you drive. So like if you hit the right side, you're going to damage your wheels probably, and that will cause your car to have some listing. So it's I think there's definitely ways to expand on that, especially with like crumple physics, where you could like, if you wrap your car around a telephone pole, you probably won't drive it away very far.
I would love to see that car just completely just like an accordion. That'd be so cool to see. I don't think any game's done that so far.
Maybe Burnout.
Isn't there a mode in one of the Burnout games where it's just like drive into traffic and that's it?
There's a mode in Burnout that is make the most damage, collateral damage, cause the biggest accident that you can by causing the most collateral damage.
And it's you drive full speed into just like oncoming traffic.
And you have to time it right so you can like hit it so that like you flip into certain other people and you explode. It's great. You just rack up millions of dollars of damage. It's very good for those people who like crashes. Burnout is a good series to do that.
So, Matt, before we transition over to our buy, wait, pass segment, where we're just going to talk about games that we're excited about buying, waiting, or passing on, is there any like final thoughts that you have about racing games, about cars, anything like that?
I don't know. This has kind of gotten me thinking more about racing games, and I haven't thought about them in a little while too. I mean, I said my dad has that console, the PS4, and right now we have a Wii that is not functional. So it's like the only time I play video game is when I go out to my dad's place. So I don't know. This kind of makes me want to get back into it a little bit. I feel like keep looking out for the new games, and I'm obviously a huge fan of Need for Speed, so I'm gonna keep looking out for that game too, even though they keep pushing it back. So, but yeah, I think this has been kind of cool, and I'm definitely more interested in this. So, thank you for revitalizing my interests.
What Seth and I like to do best is we like to crank up the nostalgia so that then you desire to play the old games that you haven't played in forever. So you go and dust off that Wii and put in Need for Speed Nitro and remember all the pain that it cost you.
We love talking about games in ways that makes you want to go back and play them, and then when you do, you realize it's just not the same.
It's no longer nostalgia. It's only regret. With that, we're going to look into the future of potential regret and talk about games that we are excited about buying, waiting, or passing on. So, Matt, you went first last time. You'll go first this time. Is there any game that's upcoming that you're excited about playing?
Yeah.
Or not excited about playing? I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I was looking at, because I was kind of trying to prep for this. I was looking at all the upcoming games and stuff, and like I said, I'm definitely excited for the new Need for Speed. I want to see how good they get it, pretty much, how realistic it can be, because that's what they're aiming for, is trying to be the most realistic as possible. And I'm also very excited for the Gran Turismo too. So I'm going to look at both of those and kind of keep an eye on them and see when they're going to come out.
Nice. Yeah. I'm going to go next because mine's on theme.
All right.
The game that I am looking forward to is actually a game I just found out about today called World Racing 95, which has the best title ever. It's developed and published by a guy or a company. I'm not sure. The name is Ollie Taylor. I'm not sure if that's a person or a very nicely named company. I could have looked it up, but I didn't. So World Racing 95 it's designed to look like the 1990s 3D racing games. So similar to virtual racing. The graphics are very blocky, it's solid colors, it just looks retro. And I love that. I mean, I love retro style games that are done in modern engines, and that's what this looks like it's trying to do. It's supposed to be a multiplayer game with up to 4 people locally, so you can sit around your TV, plug in 4 controllers, and play it. That's the kind of game I want to try. That's the kind of game I want to look at. So I'll put it down as a buy. I said I was going to put it down as a wait in my notes, but I'm lying. I'll probably put it down as a buy, and maybe Seth and I will give it a try next Extra Life when we do some live streaming.
There you go.
So completely on brand to this episode theme, the game that I'm excited about buying, waiting, or passing on is Pelagos, Rise of Greece.
Oh, wow.
Which is being developed by Cerberus, which is a fun. I feel like Cerberus is actually developing like the 3-headed dog. It's a city building game, so it's going to primarily take place around like building up a Grecian city. And the goal of Cerberus is they want to recreate the retro gaming experience of playing city builders back in like the early 2000s and the 90s for the experience of a modern day game. So there's been a game called Nebuchadnezzar that came out that has also tried to do this. This game looks like it's going with a little more 3D realistic graphics than Nebuchadnezzar did. Nebuchadnezzar was definitely more of the impressions style of the 2D, the art style. This game looks like it's almost like in between Builders of Egypt and Nebuchadnezzar. It looks like an in-between game. So I really enjoy the city builder type games. I am going to put this down as a... See, I put this down as a buy, but I think I'm going to put this down as a wait. I think it's going to be put down as a wait. The game's coming out in between 2021 and 2022. That's their release window. So hopefully I remember that I like this game and that I want it. And I ultimately will probably wait to see, what the price is when it comes out. How the initial reviews look, how people are talking about it. I was happy with Nebuchadnezzar. I felt that they could have done a little bit more for it, and they are working on it, which I'm also happy about. So I also want to make sure that when Pelagos releases, that it's kind of similar to what I want to be playing. Also, I get into like moods, as if anyone who's listened to this podcast for more than like 10 episodes realize that I do have like different moods of games that I want to play. So sometimes I'm playing like horror games, sometimes I'm playing city building games, sometimes I'm playing random first-person shooters. Lately, I've been playing like puzzler type games, so like it's just how my life goes. I feel like an RPG renaissance is coming on, but it's just how I go. I transition from genre to genre. So maybe I'll be in a city builder game when it comes out and I'll buy it. But ultimately, what I'm going to do is say is a wait. But it's if you're interested in a Grecian city builder, I would check out Pelagos, Rise of Greece.
Matt's comment though makes me want a chariot game.
Yeah,
like a chariot racing game.
Like a chariot builder racing game?
Dude. Chariot through the streets of LA, like GTA
Chariot
V.
streets of LA. Chariots underground too. I want to drive a Toyota Celica in the chariot game.
Stop.
So yeah, Matt, how can people find you if they want to check out your YouTube, etc.?
If people want to find me, all they gotta do is go online and type in "Not So Handy Car Guy." I should be one of the first 100 results that show up. So just keep scrolling until you find me. So primarily YouTube. I do have an Instagram. Don't post a ton, but you can DM me there if you want to talk to me. Not many people do, but you can if you want to. I am on Insta and YouTube, and Facebook is becoming obsolete. So how about you guys?
Yeah, well,
wow, Facebook is becoming obsolete. Jeez, that's our primary bread and butter of Facebook.
Well, I'm closing on 4,000 subs, so
well, so let's say you want to contact us, listen to us, and support us. There's plenty of ways to do that. First off, if you want to contact us, you can send us an email to classicgamingbrothers@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, classicgamingbrothers.com. You can fill out the contact form, and that will go to our email. So that's one way to contact us. You can also reach out to us via our social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Facebook and Instagram are Classic Gaming Brothers. Twitter is CG Brothers Pod. We're also available on Twitch, twitch.tv/Classic Gaming Brothers. We also have a YouTube channel, but we don't do anything on it. That's also Classic Gaming Brothers. So if you want,
or what you want to do, you can contact Not So Handy Car Guy on YouTube or Instagram, and I could message Zach for you because I'm friends with him.
That's right. Yeah, you could also just message Matt and he can contact me for some reason.
It's way easier. No, I'm kidding.
Than sending an email?
Well, some people just don't like email.
It's true.
So
I don't like email.
if you want to listen to us, we're available on all the major podcasting applications out there: Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, Google, etc. So just go on the one you like and check us out. We're available on all of them. And if you want to support us, one of the best ways to do so is just, like, subscribe, rate 5 stars, do all those things, share it with your friends, follow us on social media, let us know that you like it, and send us an email. That's a great way to support us. We also have a store if you want a t-shirt or a mug. Those are available on our store. They have our faces on them, drawn by our great artist who does all of our artwork for us for a nominal fee. That's the quick, easy way of contacting us, listen to us, and support us. So, Seth, is there anything you would like to add?
Don't play games like my brother.
And don't play games like my brother. I've been Zach.
I've been Seth.
And I've been Matt.
And we've been the Classic Gaming Brothers and Matt.
That's right.
That's right.
And now we just talk about random stuff.
We just talk about random stuff that makes it sound like this is the better part of the podcast and that nobody's paying attention to.
Sometimes
and
we talk
then
about
we only talk about stuff.